All right. So I was late letting y'all into the room. Sorry about that. I should have hit record after I said that. Okay, so since we're just gonna keep letting folks into the room as they trickle in. So since Friday tend to be a smaller group, and really excited to introduce everyone to our guest today. But before we do that, I would love to give you all a chance to introduce yourselves so that we know who's in the room. So I'm gonna start picking on folks here. Brittany, you're gonna go first.
Okay, I'm glad we had the little powwow about not looking great this morning. But yeah, my name is Brittany Coleman. My company is called Tough Cutie. We make women's hiking socks, but have a larger mission of supporting women from the ground up and increasing diversity in the outdoors.
Love it. And you do not look like a mess. I look like a mess.
Thank you.
Bye, Connie.
Hi, my name is Connie Shee, and I'm the founder of Horology. We make sustainable period underwear. I started the brand because I couldn't find period underwear that was both comfortable and sustainable. And so I thought there's got to be a better way.
Awesome, thank you. Bindu.
Hi, my name is Bindu Marosini. I'm the founder of Bindu Bites. I make Nepalese momos and sauces. I wanted to be hopefully the first woman to actually bring Nepalese cuisine and food into the CPG industry and actually make it. Make sure the product's actually super high quality with high quality ingredients and support the farmers in Nepal.
Awesome, thank you. Awesome. Carmen.
Hi, my name is Carmen Tejas, and I'm the founder of Dewy Organics, and it's a fungi-based skincare line for both women and men.
Thank you, Jordan.
Oh, wait, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's saying my settings aren't letting me put my video on, which is odd. Well, anyways, if you can hear me, I'm Jordan. I have Frank's nut milks. We make organic sprouted nut milks, all fresh, all organic, no GMOs, no extra junk. And we serve them in beautiful printed reusable glass bottles. They're sold in Austin, and then limited availability, but some availability across the rest of Texas, in Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas.
Awesome, thank you. Okay.
Brown women in this thing. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I know. Fridays are usually just filled with women, and it's such a great way to start off the day. And I am just so excited that you are here. So I'm just going to pass it over to you because you're way more interesting than me. So go ahead, take it away.
This morning, I'm gonna need a little bit of a Kickstarter here. But I think all of you are my Kickstarter today. This is really awesome. Thanks for having me, everybody. My name's Ayeshah Abuelhiga. I'm the founder and CEO of Mason Dixie Foods. And what we do is frozen American comfort foods, right? Biscuit sandwiches, venturing into other breakfast handhelds. So I've been in business since 2014, but I actually started the concept as a restaurant. So I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I worked in tech and automotive software for 15 years, and I was tired of waiting my turn. I'd gotten up to a director level and been passed over for my own job promotion 3 times because of a man, right? 3 men. And, you know, I was also tired of working for strange, and I think it's a safe space for people of color. I worked for a manager who wanted to be white. So he would do really weird things, even though he was not white. He would do weird things like tell me my hair is naturally curly. I know it doesn't look it right now because I've keratin processed the fuck out of it, but it's pretty, like, you know, bushy, and I get pretty colored in the summertime. And I came into an office meeting with curly hair one day, and he pulled me aside immediately and was like, "You look like an Aborigine. Do not ever wear your hair like that again." And I was shocked. But you know, when you're young, you just go, you brush it off and you just act like that's normal. And today, God, I wish I could just punch him in the face. But that's one of those lasting memories where I was like, it was so impactful that I had to get the hell out of there, right? I was like, this is not going to work because I will either be in jail or unemployed. So I decided that I was going to start on my path to owning my own business. My parents were both immigrants. My dad was from Israel and my Palestinian Israel, and then my mom is Korean. And when they both met in Baltimore, we're headquartered here in Baltimore now. They had a small carryout deli kind of corner store thing. Very resourceful, street smart people. So when they realized they were in a food desert, they started serving up food. And my mom, when she came to Baltimore, worked at they're called food halls now. They were just called markets back in the day, right? So she worked at a place called Lexington Market here, and she learned how to fry up chicken and make collard greens and chitlins and the whole thing, right? And she remembered they'd always have a line in there for this stuff. So she told my dad we're just going to make that stuff and sell it in, because they were lucky. It was an old deli they took over, so there was like a hot bar in there. And sure enough, overnight there were all these people that come in, all walks of life. Everybody loves fried chicken. So fast forward, when I wanted to step into this entrepreneurial role, I don't know, maybe it's just genetically modified in my genetic code that I'm like fried chicken like my mom. So I just thought about it, and I was like, at the time I was in Washington D.C. And I don't know how much you guys know about the fast casual restaurant industry, but many concepts that are out there today started in DC. So Sweet Green, Kava, Five Guys, they were all there. So it was a hotbed of that kind of activity. And I decided that I wanted to be around that because I knew that they would know where there was money. And it's kind of like why you guys are doing this in Austin, right? Smart move, very smart move. So started like thinking about what the concept could be. And at the time, Panera was having the best, years ever. And I thought about, okay, what are they doing? And it's like, oh, well, there's bread at the center plate, bread, not as a side option, right? Bread was at the focus. And I was like, you know what? We have really shit bread in America. And I started thinking about that. And I was like, okay, I'm putting it to you. And then as I looked at the landscape of what was happening in better for you food in fast casual, there was better for you pizza, salad, Mediterranean, even burgers, right? Five Guys uses grass-fed meat. But no one touched fried chicken. No one touched biscuits, right? It was KFC, Popeyes, and that homophobic organization, Chick-fil-A. So I was like, this is not America. And it's time somebody changes that, right? So I wanted to change the outlook of how American comfort food looked outwardly. And I also wanted to change it for people consuming it inwardly. Because I'm sick and tired of people, dying of diabetes and, heart attacks and stuff. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about that cuisine, right, it was brought onto us from the African diaspora, from slaves plucking stuff out of the ground and making it for their, horrifying owners. But at the same time, it's a cuisine that really shaped America, right? So I really wanted to do it the justice that it deserved. So I started focusing the whole concept around biscuits, again, looking at Panera. And I, took my tech background. I started the concept actually on Kickstarter. This was before it is the Kickstarter is today. This was when it was still 1-800-MY-IDEA. The shit was wank. I had to learn HTML. It was not easy. Okay. So, and then we had to, put it up on there. I did it not because of the money, but what I remembered about them at a couple of tech conferences I went to was they were really good at SEO. So everything you plugged into the code actually ended up going into the media sphere. And so it picked up on you very quickly. So if you wanted to get market insights and understand your customer base and, grow the brand just organically, it was a great platform to do it. So I put it on there on purpose to see, could I start this restaurant in DC and could I open one in San Francisco, right? And that was the date I was hoping to get, and I did. I mean, I got almost 400 backers from all over the world, honestly, and everything changed that day when it went live, because I always knew it was going to be a special thing, right? American comfort food is a very personal thing, personal experience. But when I started to see the messages, I was getting photos, recipes, stories. People were so emotional and they were opening up, and they didn't know anything. It's just a web page that talked about biscuits. It wasn't anything crazy. So I knew there was a lot of weight that I had to give this, right? I couldn't just start a company and wing it. It had to be really thought out. So when I looked at the recipes, I wanted to make sure they were 100% like legit, clean, defensible. When I thought about the authenticity of the recipes, you know, there was so much that shifted to make this thing really work. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened, because shortly after the Kickstarter campaign launched, we also did a couple of pop-ups in DC. We were one of the first companies to do one. And we had traction overnight, right? People were coming all over the place. They were standing in lines for 4 blocks. The valuable lesson later in life, because food and mouth, if you have a food product, will never, never not work. So don't discount the pain and torture of doing demos and stuff, because food and mouth will always work. But you know, fast forward a couple of months, we had a small stall, and I guess I'm living my mom's life, right? I'm in a food hall, and in an 80 square foot restaurant stall, and we would run out of food every day because you could only fit so many biscuits in that thing. So when we'd run out of food, we'd get, you know, customers that were kind of disgruntled, some that were like, oh, you should just offer up this and that. So one day we had a regular customer, and she was autistic, but she came every day at 10 o'clock, right? And you had to get her order exactly the way she wanted it, and whatever. She was very, but that day, I don't know what happened. We just sold out at like 9:45, and we had to send our staff back to the kitchen in hopes that we could make more and bring it back. She was just having a complete meltdown. And I was like, just hang on a second. I called my cook there, and I was like, can you just bring some of the frozen pucks, because we would make them at night and freeze them and then bake them the next day to get ahead. And I was like, let's just put them in the bag, just bring them over here. I just want to give her something because she's having a meltdown, right? And so she was like, oh, okay, well, I wanted them hot. I wanted, she's freaking out, but she was like, but I'll try these, and if they're terrible, I'm never talking to you again. I was like, okay. And so she went home, and literally that same day, because we did bring food back and we were then able to stay open until like 2:30. Same day she comes back, and she was just like, I need more of the frozen ones. They were very good. I need more of them. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that worked. So that night I went to Bed Bath & Beyond. We're all magic happy. And I bought a food saver machine. It was $100. My 20% off coupon was $80. And I bought the bags, and I started to just, you know, vacuum seal a few off, and thinking, I was really thinking about her, because I was like, if she comes back and I won't have another meltdown on my hands. So I'm just going to vacuum seal these things. We'll keep them in an igloo cooler, because we did not have another outlet to put a freezer in there. And sure enough, you know, people started hearing about it. I don't know how, maybe because she was just loud. I don't know. People started hearing that we were selling them. So we did start selling them. And then a week later, Whole Foods' Mid-Atlantic marketing manager rolls through, grabs a sandwich for her son who was in town. And then she saw the biscuits, and she was like, can I buy them? And we were like, yeah, sure. You know, she was like, I'll buy all of them. So she bought all the frozen ones. I didn't know who she was, by the way. She was kind of secret shopping. She was just maybe just enjoying her weekend. I don't know. But 3 months later, she sends an email to us saying, I have to let you know, my son is very picky about food. He's a foodie, and he loved the biscuits, and I have to have them. Can you drop off samples at you know, Mid-Atlantic headquarters? I was like, what is that? I don't even know what's the sample. Like, does she want me to give her just a puck? Like, I was like, what is she asking for, right? So I didn't know. So I brought a cardboard box, and I filled it with these vacuum sealed samples. And it looked like one of those boxes that says like free kittens, you know? So I just like, there's no branding, right? I don't have nothing. I was just a black marker, like the flavor.
You mean a banker box? One of those banker boxes?
It wasn't even a banker box, girl. It was like a tomato box that I got in the commercial kitchen. It was like thrown away. Somebody hadn't crushed it yet, so I stole that thing. It wasn't cute. But you know, I went to Whole Foods, right? Because I didn't know where the hell headquarters was, and I walk in there, and I was like, "Hey, is Marianne back here?" And they're like, "You're looking for the offices," and I was like, "Well, I don't know," you know. And so they like pointed me to the offices. I get there, and she's literally taking the bags, and she's like looking at how she's going to merchandise. I was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "Well, I was thinking about carrying the products," and I was like, "Oh my God, I thought she wanted them for her son. Like, I didn't know that she wanted to like." I was just being nice. I was just bringing her samples, right? So I was like, no, please give me some time. I'll figure out how to make this nice, and we'll get them on the shelves. And it took a really long time, because this was 2014. This is before like Naturally and all these amazing organizations came out. This is when I had to do my research on like the dye line, right? Like all the imaginary packaging. There was nothing there to help you understand how to really start a company, let alone a baking business, right? Let alone, you know, I mean, I was trying to run a restaurant, right? Like this was a lot. But 9 months later, you know, after a lot of personal research and stuff, we ended up launching our first Whole Foods. And it was the day before Thanksgiving. You weren't allowed to demo. But one learning lesson you should all know: never take no for an answer. Just do it and beg for forgiveness later. Okay. So if there's a blackout period, you're not allowed to demo. You're not allowed to launch new things in this crazy last 6 weeks of the year, right? Bad timing. But I was like, well, I'm going to lose my spot, and it's biscuit season. Like, we got to do it, right? So I brought on my business partner, who's now our COO, Ross, and we showed up at 7:30 in the morning at Whole Foods. We walked up to the people that it was in front of the meat section because they didn't have any outlets, and we wanted to plug in like a warmer and stuff. Outlet didn't even work, so we were just like, you know, whatever. Set up this table, and we told the meat guy, right? And we just like gave him a bunch of biscuits. He ate them, and he was like, "Oh, you're good, you're good." So we demoed from 7:30 to 10:30, and we sold out of 150 boxes. So that day, it beat butter and milk sales. So a couple weeks later, after Thanksgiving, they do a post-Thanksgiving call. They talk about what went well, what not. And apparently the regional managers were like, we heard about these biscuits. We need to get them. They made a lot of money, whatever. So then that day, like, we got 20 different stores calling us asking for these biscuits. And mind you, back then too, it was a different world at Whole Foods. They were having an identity crisis. This was before Amazon, right? They were making food for rich people, right? It was organic only, and you can't be in here unless you're posh, right? It was like a different world. So they didn't even have a frozen bread set. It was all gluten-free. So when we got there and we got into these stores, we actually placed ourselves in the ice cream cabinet to make sure that people knew that it was weird and not a gluten-free item. And we had to like convince Whole Foods that you just can't put regular stuff in a door, that people are trained to know it's not poisonous to them, right? So I'm just like, this is not going to work, guys. But it was crazy because eventually, because we started this category, other brands started coming in locally. There was a guy that did like stuffed bagels, a muffin person, you know, oatmeal cup. It really started to incubate a whole different category for us. And honestly, to this day now, you know, it's been what, 7 years, maybe 8 years soon. Whole Foods is still the best account we've ever had. We grow there in the triple digit, you know, percentages every year still. And I have to say, you know, I know it's really hard, and every brand wants to get into Whole Foods. You stay your course, do whatever they say, because eventually it does work out, right? Like, it is a stellar retailer. They have the best customer base, because there's no question about, if it, you know, the customer's very trusting. What's there, they know is good, and they're going to buy it, right? There's not a lot of retailers that have put that much sweat equity into stamping like a magic seal of approval on this product is meant to be here, right? So as you get the opportunity to get into Whole Foods, really consider that your ace customer and spend as much attention as you can on it. We spent over 1.5 years on Whole Foods alone. We did not even try to grow in Whole Foods. I think we had like 60 stores. So we didn't even have the full Mid-Atlantic at that time. It was just, I think, most of them. But we didn't grow beyond that, because we wanted to make sure we did them right. And it was probably the reason that we're still here today, because we learned a lot out of that experience. And, you know, just be committed to the best customer that you have and learn from that. So, you know, here we are 7 weeks later, and we ran $3.5 million to the register in the last 52 weeks. So you just got to think it takes a lot of time too. Like, everyone thinks it's like this magic dust. You get into Whole Foods and tomorrow you're a bajillionaire and the shit's flying up. No, it doesn't work like that. It's 7 years later. Here we are. It's slow, but it's intentional. So if I would tell anybody here, those are 2 words I think to take to heart. I know it's a painful process. You know, we were bootstrapped financially since from 2014 to 18. I didn't take an investment for 4 years. And it was my own savings. It was profit from the restaurant. It was credit cards and loans and all kinds of stuff. Every debt vehicle I could get. But it was really important to start that way, because, you know, the second that it got big and I couldn't do it with my own cash anymore, you know, things get difficult, and then you got people talking to you, and you got to be careful about that stuff too. You know, we're really lucky. I obviously could tell I'm a very direct person, and I don't take a lot of shit. And, you know, the venture capital community is not my cup of tea. let PTSD from corporate America just came back to me every time I talked to one of those guys. And I just always thought it's really weird to me that you want precious equity in my company, and yet I'm the one that has to pitch to you. I just thought it was always an ass backwards concept. But, you know, I think because of that, though, I was really cautious about who took money from. And in the end, people always rule it out. But there is a lot of private capital out there from angels, a lot. And people think angels are $50,000 investors. I have angels who've invested over $1.5 million. That's not how that world works. It's harder to get because you've got to go door to door and you've got to find the right people. But the most important thing is you find the people that have the same values. It's just like dating. I tell everybody this. It's like finding a husband or a wife or whatever, right? It's a permanent partner. It's a financial relationship. It is legally binding. The only thing you don't do is have sex with them. So it's literally the same thing. So as you court them, you have to know, do they appreciate who I am? Do they appreciate the mission? Would they be a good brand ambassador if they were taking a product to a party, right? And introducing them to the world? Are they going to say the right thing? Right? I mean, one of the things I thought was really important, we were certified woman owned before I even took in not venture, but capital. And I knew that if successively I started bringing in investors, we could lose that percentage ownership stake. So at the time I was talking to mostly guys, because that's unfortunately still who controls a lot of money. But then I said, you know what, I'm not okay with this, guys. I think I'm going to pull out because I really want to keep this woman-owned status, and you guys are going to ruin it. And they didn't bat an eye. They were like, okay, we'll talk to our wives and our daughters. Maybe they'll invest instead. And they did. So to this day, you know, my cap table is still predominantly women, over 60%. And that is exactly it was kind of genius too, because people forget women support each other. I know that the media likes to make it like we're crazy, catty psychos that just like to fight. And I'm like, I've never met a girl that wants to just fight me. Like we help each other all the time. We talk about each other. When I go to events and there's a woman that wins an award, I'm the loudest. I don't even know her. I'm like, yeah, there's a woman that won, right? Like there's a community around that. So what happened was when I got all these female investors, they are the best ambassadors. They go into public, they're like, oh my God, this is a brand I invested in and it's woman owned and she's got an amazing product. Men don't do that. They don't do that. They go to the golf course. So yeah, I invested in this company. You should look into it. Who is going to remember that shit on the golf course? Nobody. But these women are in the store. Like they're shopping and they're going, right? And they're like throwing it in people's carts and they're wearing the t-shirts out, you know, to the spot, you know, that's the momentum and the energy that women have. And that's something really important, since I think most of you on the call now are women. Like it is an active community that's growing and growing in influence. And there's a lot of money out there. They want to put it back into women, but we don't make ourselves available enough. Like we got to get out there and let the world know. I mean, I think Connie and Brittany, both of you have very feminine centric products that could really land it and resonate with a ton of women, right? Especially Connie, if you make them panties sexy, I will be wearing them because they're period pants are ugly, right? Like we gotta make them look better. But you know, I think that's something that I'd encourage all of you to think about. Like, don't be discouraged that you're only getting angel activity. That's actually one of, I think, the best things. We started out with a $1 million investment of angel, and our seed, and then in our Series A, we raised over 6.3 million from the same people. I didn't even have to go and find new people. So you'd be surprised. They may not even let you on to know how much money they have, because the seed investment, you know, the scary investment, right? It's like, is it going to work out? I'll put more money in the pot, right? But when it works, these folks are down. They're ride or die. Most of my investors too are actually self-made, right? They're close to money. It's new money. They don't want to. They want to encourage others, right, to have the same experience they do, because they're still so close to that life and those memories of success, right? They want to see it for other people. So again, it goes back to values, right? Entrepreneurial, finds values in other entrepreneurs. Women find value in other women, right? Like that's the mindset that you should have as you go to market and think about, just as much as you want the money, don't forget you want the people too. They're going to be forever in your life until you sell the company, or if you don't, it could be around forever. Yeah, and that's actually another thing I think is important to know. I hate when people ask, what's the exit? I don't have time to think about no exit. Like, I gotta run this company, like never think about the end. It could never happen, right? You got to enjoy this ride, this experience. I tell people every day, I am unhireable after this. I would be fired in a heartbeat in corporate America. I am a walking disaster waiting to happen. I would just rip apart every system. This is never going to happen for me again because, my life's changed so much being in this seat. And I've loved every minute, ups and downs. I've loved every minute. In fact, I'm sure all of you guys have felt it, right? The last couple of years have been some of the hardest years ever. But it's interesting to me that it's the most business applications and registrations happen. Why? Because now the people that really should have always been owning their own destiny, right, are like, fuck this. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm gonna do this myself, right? I'm gonna get up there and I'm gonna just try. And you'd be really, really shocked. Biggest lasting piece of advice saying I ever got was when I was working at this development firm one year, and this guy named Pastor Casanova, what a name. He was trying to bring his wife over from Mexico, and he was having the hardest time because this was like Bush 2 era, right? There's all these kind of immigration challenges and whatnot. And he was like, I was gonna give up, and I was thinking maybe I should just move to Mexico. And then I just thought, what have I ever failed at that I've put 100% of myself into? And it was funny because he was just talking, right? I'm at my desk and doing my work, and he was just talking, and I was like, but then that just hit me. It hit me because then I was like, wow, what a profoundly accurate statement. Think about it. Have you ever failed at something that you put 100% of yourself into? It's impossible. Why? Because you pivot. You think of another route. You say, maybe this wasn't a good idea. I'm going to go do this instead. You don't just go, oh, I'm done. I just want to go into bed and die. That's not what happens. So if you really, really can commit in your mind that you're giving 100% of yourself to this business, and you're giving 100% of yourself to this start, to the investment path, to the product development path, you will always, always find a way. Always. Giving up is when it's over, right? That's really when it's over. I've had so many stop starts. We ran out of money. That's why I ended up taking investment. We ran out of cash, period. Right before a Kroger and Publix launch. I was freaking out. And then Ross ordered the wrong damn packaging. It was like, could everything, and it always happens like this. I also believe in the Japanese rule of 3, like 3 bad things, 3 good things. It was just a shitstorm of bad. And I was like, I could have just like melted, and I could have just said it's over. But nope. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call everybody I know. We're gonna open up 4 pop-ups. All those restaurants will generate some cash, so we're gonna do that. And we're going to go ahead and figure out how to get this packaging situated. There's got to be some extra. Maybe we'll just get a delay. We'll have to pay a fine, but whatever, we'll pay the fine, right? And everything was fine. Everything was fine, right? It's just about the mentality, right? And it's crazy because here we are, 7, 8 years later, and the team's huge now. We have like 30 people, and we've been through the roughest patches, right? Like I said, the last 2 years was terrible. And it was funny because I really feel like we're all sadomasochists here because everybody loves when it's terrible. They do the best work here when they're terrible. It's like, well, I don't know why you're motivated by the bad stuff when it's easy. They're like, but when there's like bad stuff, they're just like, get in there. Like they win 4 times bigger when it's
That's
hard.
called a trauma response. That's
what?
That is a trauma response that I have. Like I gravitate towards chaos and hard, and that's like an immigrant, situation. It is a trauma response. And you know what? I mean, the world could be burning down and I salivate over it. I'm like, let's do this. Good stuff's about to happen.
You should come work here, Trina, because all these people have the same values you do.
But I mean, lean into the trauma response, I guess, is one of the lessons.
It is, or it's just, again, just people that really don't believe in failure, right? They're just not going to sit there and take it.
You don't have a choice. You can't fail. It's like not an option. So like, why even bother thinking about it?
Exactly. I don't have a single person who would be that violinist on the Titanic. Well, let's go, guys. No one's like that. Them motherfuckers are breaking them violins and making a canoe with it. They're not doing it, right? So So that's the mentality, right? But also, I think it's, as founders, you guys have the opportunity too to build culture, right, and build that into who your company becomes. I'll tell you, it was one of the hardest things too, because I think one of our advisors very early on said you have to really focus on culture, and then I was like, what does that mean? I was like, all right, I'm not going to put like a thing in a frame that says the culture of this company is blah blah. Like I was like, to me, culture just like it's invisible, right? It's an energy. Like I don't know how you describe that, and you don't. That's what I learned, is you don't really describe it. It just you put it out there and you attract people into it, and all of a sudden those people create their own energy and they attract other, and then you have a culture, and it's very definable. You know, we're like working on, that's another thing I'll tell you guys. Don't listen to anyone that tells you need to invest a butt ton of money in marketing and branding and all that stuff early. You do not. We are literally for the first time now looking at it, and it's the best, because 8 years is what it took for us to really understand who we were. When you're starting up, your life is all over the place. You look like this now, in 2 years you're going to look different. And so what are you going to do? Invest hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to change it? No. You focus on your products, you focus on your people, you focus on growth. That's it. You don't focus on all this extraneous stuff. It comes, right? In the first few years, your customer is going to come to you because they believe in you as a person, you as a brand, in terms of the logo even. Like they're not going to care about anything. It's about your story. It's about your why, right? Cultivating that is free. It takes your time, your mental equity to do it, but that's it. And that will go such a long way. If you look at some of the stuff, honey, back then I had like freelancer help. It was a mess when I think about it. But you know what? It worked. It got us here, right? So here we are now, we're working with this big brand agency, and it's great because you don't have to be like, here, tell me who I am. They want to make sure they are authentically saying who you are, and the chairs are in reverse. So it's a really interesting experience because you get to see what you've become. It's a real like therapy session to watch this like progression of your company over time. And I think it's really hard in this industry because it's a new industry, really, right? It's not 15 years old if you really think about it. So all the success stories early on were these fast-paced, like 4 years, $400 million exits. Woo! Okay, that's over. That's over. It's never going to happen like that again. Make sure in your mindset, you know, this is a long-term commitment. It could be 4 years. It could be 40, right? Like you set yourself on this path because that it's a passion and it's a thing that you feel as though you can really commit to. And if you don't feel that way right now, highly, highly recommend you have a come to Jesus and really think about it, because it just gets harder. People say it gets easier. Okay, yeah, some things get easier, but the problems get bigger. The risks get bigger. The challenges are harder. And then you have more people in the room that you have to fight to get to it, right? Because you have a bigger company. Everyone's got a different perspective. It has to be preserved, right? All the things that, yes, it gets easier because you have help, right? You're not doing finance, ops, marketing, you're not doing that anymore. But now it's even harder because you got to make sure those 4 people agree, right? If things slow down, so, just really, really be dedicated to the thought that you're in this forever, right? And if it doesn't happen as forever and you get lucky enough to have an opportunity that you want to exit or whatever it is, that's the moment that you just can be proud of. I mean, it's also kind of weird. If you think about all the companies that exited, most of those founders are right back in the game. So I don't know if we're saying active, right? I don't know, but I just think it's just something to know. Like there's a bit of a passion in this products industry, right? Like you just can't stop. It's like a drug, right? So why do it for somebody else's company? Just do it for yourself for as long as possible, right? You're never going to have this experience twice, too. It's very rare somebody gets it twice. Okay, put 100,000% of yourself into this because it is a hell of a ride. It is the most fun ride ever. Just enjoy it. Did I touch on all your things, Christina? Let me just look here.
Yeah, I think you did pretty good. So there's a couple of times now you've said to really put your whole self into it, right? And I think that sometimes we don't know that we aren't. So what advice can you give from a personal development perspective? You know, how have you grown as a person to really understand and give yourself 100% to your business? And, you know, there's a lot of scary things. There's a lot of things we have to face about ourselves to really overcome some of those challenges. And sometimes, you know, we'll put our head in the sand, or we'll pretend or ignore something because we don't want to feel that, you know. So but it does, that kind of stuff does impact your business. So what kind of advice do you have for people starting on their journey?
So I think, first of all, I mean, I'm actually half Asian and I'm type A, you know, crazy type A. Always want 100%. Actually, I graduated with a 4.8. I don't even know how the hell that's possible. They must have just like fucked with me and just made it up because they knew I was a psycho and would come after them because it's 4.0. You know, I was just one of those people that was like editor of this, president of that, right? So used to being the person who does everything, right? So it was funny because one of my advisors very early on it said, one of my biggest concerns about you is you won't let go. And I was like, I am not gonna let somebody tell me not to, you know, it's the first thing I did, start letting go of stuff, you know, like, and it was great because that's really when when you first start, you have to do everything, right? And it's very taxing, and that's when you want to put your head in the sand. It's when you want to just like escape. You just feel like you want to give up sometimes. But you have to stop and realize you're doing that to yourself. You don't actually have to do it all. You know, people are like, oh, it's my own journey. I don't want to give up equity. I don't want to do this. When I met Ross, my business partner, I hired him on $10 an hour that I couldn't even afford to pay him sometimes. I was like, I got you next week, you know, and he stuck by it because we had the same value system, because he trusted me, because I told him, if we can get to this gap or whatever, this goalpost, I will make you a formal partner. And it did happen, right? I stand by my word. And it was important because it did happen so quickly. You could not do everything yourself. The division of labor became a great way for me to leverage my biggest talent and his biggest talent separately. Always hire people that are good at things you're not. That's another thing I will tell you. Do not hire you twice. You need people that will be the exact opposite and like the exact opposite thing. What happens when you do that then is you can put 100% of your best self into it, which is almost like 2x. So I would tell people Ross is my second right hand. I don't say he's my right hand. That means I involved a sacrifice there, right? No, I gained a hand, right? Because I was then able to use both of mine freely. That's the mindset you have to have when you start thinking about growth. It's not a bad thing to bring people in. And it doesn't have to be permanent. I mean, even from an advisory standpoint, in our 7 years, I've gone through 3 cycles of advisors. I hire them and I fire them, even though you don't hire them or anything, but I've used them and then I got rid of them because they outgrow themselves too, because you outgrow them, right? So just think about this whole self not being every tentacle, every finger, every ounce of your being. It's every ounce of your best asset. That is what you have to commit to. And sometimes it means letting go to give it to somebody else to run home. Okay, it's a very important piece of advice. I cannot stress enough, because I've watched so many of my friends fail over not wanting to give up some of it. It's impossible. You're going to have to do it. And it doesn't always have to be hiring. It can be a vendor, right? It can be a consultancy. It can be contracted support. It does not have to be an equity stake, right? Just really think through what giving up something means.
I love that, if someone told you that you couldn't do something and you're like, oh, watch me delegate. You don't even know me. I'm gonna be so good.
I know.
I can relate to that. I can relate to. I think the first time I met you, I immediately was like, oh, spirit sister, I feel you. All right, let's
call it trauma something. I think we're just bonded by that.
All right, I'm going to open up the floor. I'm sure you all have a lot of questions, so go ahead. Let's jump in.
I have a question. First of all, thank you so much, Ayeshah, for.
Oh, we lost you, Connie. Come back. Okay, Bendu, you go. We'll come back to Connie.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for being really honest with us. I wanted to ask you, as part of your journey, did you ever get pressured, whether by your investors, just through your journey, did you get pressured into co-packing your product or having a co-packer make your product?
So when we first got started, we did it out the back of our restaurant.
Right.
When we got started, it was still the Wild Wild West. There was not even like protocol around commercial kitchens, anything like that. So we kind of got away with a lot of things that you can't get away with today. I always preface that, like, do not copy, because this is not copyable now, because it's like you can't just do that. But yes, we eventually did move to co-manufacturing. I think it's really important to figure out a way when you're sussing out who's going to be a good manufacturer, make up a fake recipe, but with the hardest attributes. So for example, if your momo dough is the hardest to make and that's the thing you need to protect because that's why it's good, then find a way to emulate what the end result is going to be without giving that recipe away, right? Because a lot of these manufacturers do, and that's one of the questions I always ask: do you sell? Are you a reseller, and do you create your own products, right?
Mhm.
A lot of them don't, right? They go, nope, nope. Every customer is proprietary customer. We do not sell your product. We do not sell your formula because we only make it because it's for you. We don't make our own biscuits, right?
Mhm.
That's important, right? We had a situation because of COVID and everything where we had to use a repacker that did make their own sandwiches,
Mhm.
biscuit sandwiches, and their shady asses tried to figure out what our eggs were, and our egg company was like, watch them. And so we started black labeling everything, right? So like that, and that's a pain in the ass too. Like it's a really hard thing to do. So that's why, then we had to pivot and find another team who doesn't do anything but custom products. So I just think be really careful about how you extend yourself.
Yeah.
Put a lot of protections in your manufacturing contract too for out clauses. People forget that relationships end and they always just kind of keep it easy, like, oh, 30-day notice, we're out of here. It gets really hard. You start buying stuff, they start using it, you forget to put the addendum on there that was your equipment, who uninstalls it, who pays to move it. I mean, it's like a whole, go through every fucked up scenario you could possibly imagine.
Okay.
Like that is how I would go about thinking about contracts in general. Think about an alien dropped out of Mars, came onto your equipment, started putting rats in. I mean, just think of every bad thing, because honestly, it will happen. Some weird thing like that is going to happen. And the last thing you want is everybody scrambling to look at how to fix it, right? So I definitely think you have to deal with the devil to grow. Unless you want to open up your own facility, do not recommend it, but if you want to, vertical integration is a big trend right now. If you can do it, you can. But just be careful, right? Just be really cautious about how much you open up.
So the paranoid survive.
Yes, especially early stage, right? Because it's nothing for them to copy what you're doing because you're too small to fight them. You're not going to go through litigation and fight them for millions and millions of dollars. And formulas, don't forget, are very rarely proprietary. I mean, there's no way to really protect the formula. So you got to have an invention in order to do that. So it's not easy to fight.
Cool. Connie, I'm going to go back to you really quick and then we'll do Madhu and Jordan.
Okay, cool. Sorry, technical issues. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very inspired by today's brew crew. I really appreciate Katrina for putting everything together, and Ayeshah for being here. So I also grew up in Maryland. I spent over a quarter of a century there. Yeah, spent my whole life in Maryland. Yeah, and then recently moved out just a few years. But I do miss the Mid-Atlantic.
Well, you're welcome back.
Yeah. I think I was going to ask a more like esoteric question about like how you stay motivated. Cause I mean, I spent a while in corporate America as well. And I don't know, I didn't hate it. Of course, obviously it's a complete night and day from what we're doing now, but like, and struggling about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Just wondering about like what drives you every day and like how kind of you committed like fully and like I don't know, just more on that. I have a ton of questions, but yeah.
I think I'm kind of a weirdo, and I think everybody in this company is, because we're only motivated by success, whatever that means. I've thrown out bonus incentives, I've thrown out cash. I'm like, we got to get this number. They don't care. They don't care. They just want to win. And I think, kind of like Katrina pointed out, I don't like people tell me I can't do something because then I'm like, I'm gonna do it twice. like, I think it's just this need to win at all costs, whatever that means. And every day, every week, there's something I have to win. It could be a fucking email chain. Like, I'm like, no, I'm gonna win this. Like it's just this like constant. Without corporate America has you winning only in a bucket. You're not allowed to win everything. When you're an entrepreneur, you get to win everything. And that to me is like, I don't know, that just gets me off. I just love the thought that I'm always going to get everything I want because I can, right? Like that's the fire. I think the team here has it too. They want to win at all costs. They will never say no. Sometimes I'm like, y'all are crazy. There's no way and they come back and they get it. So I think that's the biggest driver that motivates me. I think also as the company's grown, and all of you will hopefully feel this one day. I think it's also a very women thing. I don't have kids. I don't have time to have a family of my own because I always tell people I have 30 kids to feed here. Like every one of the team is a part of me now. Like it's my life, my story, my history. They're part of this journey with me. They chose me, right? So it's funny because when you're a parent, your kids don't get to choose you. It's a different vibe. But to me, it's almost even bigger because I don't just think about them. I think about their kids, right? I think about their husbands, their wives, their grandmas, whoever is living with them. Like I sleep every night thinking I have 100 people I gotta feed. And so if I ever slow down, if I ever stop, if I fail all of them. And I don't like failure, right? So like I think that's another thing that kind of shifts in you as you grow. Every person, and honestly, not just your people, your vendors, your partners, they all become a part of. They're all doing this on the hint that you're an awesome person. There's nothing here. There's no $1 million like pot of gold anywhere sitting for them. It's not that. It's literally one belief that you as a human are superhuman. That is a very, very powerful commitment from another human. So don't ever underestimate that because that's really what's going to make you successful in the end. It's how many people believe you have superpowers. That's what's going to get you to the end. So to me, that's really motivating, right? Especially when people tell me no, like I don't like that kind of thing. But all these people want to hear yes. Like I always joke, my investors don't like when I have bad news. They don't even hear it. They're just like, you'll get through that. So what's the next thing? Like they don't even care. You almost train people to feel that way about you, right? So don't lose that fire. The second you start to look tired, the second you start to look, you're giving up. The second you start to look like you don't like this, all of this disappears like that. You have to find ways every day to feel it. And if you really, and you know what? It's okay if you don't. Maybe this is not the permanent journey for you then. That's okay too. It is not for everyone. And I want everyone to understand that. This is not a simple journey. And I hate when I meet founders that are like, I call them KitchenAid founders. I threw this shit in the pot and it was amazing. So I'm gonna sell it. Okay. Right, like you're gonna be gone tomorrow because there's no story to that. I threw shit in a pot too and it didn't stick. Like that's not a thing, right? Like what is your real motivator for this project, for this success? I encourage all of you maybe to think a little bit too about that because it'll feed into your product stories a lot better when you really, really think about what the motivating factor is. Like, is it actually sustainability that really made you do this? Or really were you just tired of having ugly like panty lines when you go to work? Right? Like, let's think about that, right? Like, what is that real motivator? And stick to it because that's where you're going to be passionate every day about it, right? Where you're going to be able to talk like this all the time about it.
Got you. Thank you.
Okay, Madhu, go ahead.
Hi, Ayesha. My name is Madhu, and we have a chai and coffee company based out of Austin over here. And, chai and biscuits, I think they would pair amazingly. And loved your story. Thank you for sharing in such a very raw, upfront way. And so many things. Like I have like really one big question, but I could talk to you forever, I suppose. And so as a lot of other people, because you're just so easy to connect and slow but intentional. Thank you for saying that. And all of us, we need to keep hearing this more often than not, because currently if you're not doing $1 million in the first year revenue, if you're not in 500 stores within your first year, you're not successful. And then that's the message that's really propagated out there every single day. And
Whose message is that?
I'm sorry?
Whose message is that?
I mean,
Think about-
generally, it's kind of like how you look at it. People are dropping their big news saying, oh, in 3 years we have had.
But think about who runs them. Venture capital and private equity.
Correct. Yeah.
Money
Generally.
stories, right? Those are not your stories. You go to a retailer, they'll tell you right now, they'll be, Dewey Organics over there is crushing it, and I'm going to get her into another store. That is their success story. They don't give a fuck about who owns that company in terms of money. They don't care. That's the story they propagate because they have to convert cash. That is the story that this industry has kind of really grown from, and you have to ignore it. All of you here, and I think this is so. I'm a co-founder in a nonprofit called Project Potluck. This is one of the reasons why brown people are going to save the planet. Women are going to save the planet because everything that we do is intentional, and everything we do has passion and purpose.
Absolutely.
Every company, 1,200 people in that portfolio of companies are all intentionally trying to change the world somehow, some way. You look at the venture capital portfolio, it's just another soft drink. It's just another bag of chips. It's just another. And they're going to pay their way there. Yeah. That's none of our stories. There's a big gap. And these guys know. They know now. There's a big gap between what we're doing and purpose-driven, Gen Z, young millennials, everything they do and buy is purpose-driven now. And they're fucked because they carried hundreds of millions of dollars portfolio investments with no purpose and no mission and no nothing. Yeah. And they don't know what they're going to do because they've got a very limited window now of consumerism that is going to buy that stuff long term. Yeah. They're not going to last. Stop worrying about those people. Worry about you. Yeah. Just think about how you're going to grow. If you want to do 2 stores a fucking month, that's your prerogative. If you want to grow 10% a year, no one ever says growth period is bad. General Mills grows 0.2% if they're lucky. Yeah. And everyone applauds that. They get stock money off of that, right? Like, don't think about everybody else. Just worry about you. Don't feed into the finance machine. It is not for you. It's not for anyone, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
It's going to be talked about because they pay for a lot of things, right? They sponsor everything. So you're never going to see it. You're not going to hear it. That industry is just, think about it as just banking. It has nothing to do with products. So just stay focused on you, your path, whatever you define success to be. That's what you have to do. Build your own plan. No one's ever going to question intentionality. And I've learned that the hard way. Yeah. Right. So
that is very encouraging. Thank you for sharing that. It is often very easy, maybe just personally only for me to get distracted with all the big news and the PR and other things. But every once in a while, like when I connect with someone like you here locally, or we even just podcasts, that brings back, and you're able to come back and be like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. My question for you was, when you first started your retail journey, could you share a little bit more about your distribution models and channels, and like how you grew the distribution? How did you set it up? And what were, as we are a cold chain, so it's a huge taking. Besides cold chain, with our product, I'm trying to drive the message that perishable is a good thing. We have limited shelf life on our ready to drink products. So when I talk to a buyer, their first question is, what is your shelf life? And my answer to that is perishable is a good thing, rather than just telling them, oh, it's 60 days or 80 days, something like that. So that is one of the big challenges, and that ties into distribution. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about where did you start? What was your pain point on distribution, and where to grow from there? And to finish that off, if you can recommend a good distributor in the Boston area for high-end gourmet food, I would really appreciate that as well.
So the thing about distribution is very product specific and transportation specific. So in beverage, it's very different than for me and frozen. And refrigerated is challenging because It's not just all refrigerated, right? It's refrigerated, perishable food, beverage, even medicine. It's all different, right? So and again, I always tell people, do not try to copy this because it's not existing anymore. We were in the wild,
Right.
wild west, right? Like we had this small
to me, I think, when you have a frozen product, I can work a little bit in backwards a little bit, because we need refrigeration, not frozen. Like Bindu's product is going to be frozen. So there's to understand how you distributed frozen product, and if you have any networking opportunities in your arena, like it would be really nice to hear about that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think, and I'm happy to take this offline too. Tanya, feel free to share my email address, because obviously what I'm going to say is so specific. It doesn't apply to like Jordan and Brittany who have questions too. But again, it's very product specific. It's regional. And again, when I got started, there was Wild West distributors. Like we had our commercial kitchen had a truck, and they were allowed to fucking drop stuff off at Whole Foods, right?
Amazing.
You also find back then, it's less likely because UNFI and KeHE, they've increased their cart minimums for retailers. So they don't allow indies to come in and self-stock as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, the world's definitely shifted, not in anyone here's favor when it comes to distribution, especially post-COVID. But let's take it offline, because it's a lot more complicated of an answer than I can.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll connect you. I know we have literally 1 minute left. Ayesha, I don't know if you have a hard stop at 10.
I've been waiting for so long. I'll answer them and then we'll.
Okay, sounds good. Jordan, go ahead.
Hi. Okay. First off, your biscuits are amazing. I literally pack them on road trips when we're traveling and take them in my cooler wherever we're going, because I love them and my kids love them. But I had a Whole Foods question, and we can also take this offline, because I would love to kind of pick your brain about it. But Whole Foods came to me January of 2020. So then everything went to shit anyways, but they came to me and were really interested in carrying us, but they basically wanted us to kind of change we're in glass, we're raw, and our shelf life is 5 to 6 days. So it's completely raw, no preservatives. And they wanted us to do HPP, high pressure processing, put it into plastic to get a 30-day shelf life. At that point, I basically told them that that's, wasn't something that we were interested in doing. I really don't want to move to plastic, because I think single-use plastic is just continues to be a major problem. So, I've been kind of researching and looking into other packaging options, but that would take way more money than we have right now. And then other processing options like UV light is something that's starting to become more common for glass, but again, a lot of money. So I told them no. They were super kind. We kind of kept the door open, and now it's been 2 years of COVID, so I haven't circled back. Would you have any advice or recommendations if I was going to go back to them, or?
I think you have to think about the statement you just said. 5 to 6 day shelf life is a risk for you as a business owner, right? Because the world is not intelligent. Don't forget that. And people do dumb things with products. And with that volatility, someone could get really sick and it's over in a heartbeat, right? As much as the commitment to sustainability, I'm a big proponent, right? There are other paths for you to get there, right? We have a film we've been waiting for 5 years for. There's going to be things that just don't exist today that meet your motivating messaging and sustainability promise. Incremental change is okay. Now, I hate single-use plastic too, trust me. I think it's a waste, but I also hate the thought of people closing an amazing business because they got sick, right? That's dumb shit, right? Like, let's just think about that. So in my mind, I think it's really important to always weigh the opportunity size is bigger if you just do that now. There's nothing wrong with you planning on how to get back to glass, right? Maybe there will be a technology, or you hit a certain volume, the UV thing doesn't become an issue. That's what's happening with us. Now that we have the volume through our food service business, we can actually buy that film and it's literally a penny more. It would have been 10 cents more when we first looked at it. It's all about volume. So don't lose sight of opportunity just because it doesn't meet your messaging now. You can always go back. You're not compromising anything except success. right? It's not a failure point to say that you started in a glass container. That could be part of the story too. And you're committed to glass, but you're also committed to health and food safety, and you're committed to getting as many of these people eating raw as possible. That is a better story than I just refuse because I hate plastic, right? We all do. The world does, right? Like, so just think about that as you kind of continue, like what you're, don't lose sight of an opportunity just because you think it's compromising a bigger value. I think the bigger value is this raw product, right? Getting better food into people's bodies, whatever vessel that is right now. So
Yeah.
I would approach them again, and if you can take on the HPP aspects, I would approach them, and I would talk to the local foraging team too. If it's not something you could do immediately, maybe there's a rollout you could do in 1 or 2 or 3 stores that they would allow you to sell merchandise. Beverages are Wild Wild West still. You could still put a bottle in there and they won't say anything. So like, if that's a path for you, I would try it.
Okay, sweet. Thank you. Super helpful.
Okay, Brittany.
Hi. So my question is, I've recently decided on a goal of like 5 million, 5 years, and I want to do it with like just like 5 ideally badass women, but badass people is my goal. And so I'm just trying to figure out where you found your badass people. Where'd you find them?
So I obviously was lucky to have 15 years in the outside world, and I kept contact with them over time. Any badass woman I met now works here. And then you run out of those, and then you have to find them. But I also am a firm believer, I never post jobs because you just get garbage. You have to go and do the dirty work. Like that LinkedIn thing is $100 some, but if you think about it, it's cheaper than a recruiting job or posting it to Indeed. It is worth it to be able to go into every person's profile and really talk to them. And I would really, really also take the advice, hire slow, fire fast. You want to make sure you really vet somebody. You got to know them emotionally. You got to know how they're going to interact under pressure. I can't tell you how many amazing people that I was just like drooling over, and I was like, oh, I found them. Oh my God, they're the best. And then you ask one question the wrong way to them, and they completely melt. And then you go, oh my God, like you don't know. But I think the average interview process for me for key people, so you want 5 key people, has lasted over 8 weeks on one person. I have over 8 conversations before I even extend an offer. And even for like, for example, we just went through it with our CMO and CSO that we're hiring, and it took me 13 candidates on the marketing candidate. And you also don't realize how varied experience anyone can be. They can all have the same title and the same experience, but when you get into it, like they might be really sales and marketing oriented, but not brand marketing oriented, right? They might be motivated because they want to be a CEO one day, so they don't want to do grunt work, right? Like those are the things you have to suss out pretty quickly. But think about every time you have an interview, and if they don't last, they're not going to last with you. That means they're hungry for something else, and that's not you. You got to find someone who's going to be there and want to be with you. Just like dating, right? You got to find the one that wants to be with you, and they will wait 8 weeks, 8 interviews, right? Some people can't afford that though. Some people need to get a job, and that's fine too, but that's not that you don't need that right now. You need people that are going to stay by your side through this entire journey, ride or die, right? So just be really intentional. Think about the attributes that you really need and want in a person, and find them yourself. Like, don't be afraid to cold LinkedIn connect with people. You never know who you're going to find. Go through your network with people who know people, and just be really intentional about what you're looking for.
Thank you.
I mean, just so many mic drops today. And speaking of LinkedIn, I'm going to drop your LinkedIn in the chat. Thank you for being here and spreading all of these insights. I mean, I just always appreciate how authentic and honest and true to yourself that you are, because it's really motivating for everyone else as well. I feel like we can all go run a marathon because we just had a really great pep talk. So thank you so much. I just so appreciate you. And fellows, thank you for being here, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Nice meeting everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.